Fascinating news story coming out of Politico about Donald Trump's ties to the mob when he was first getting started in New York and building Trump Tower and Trump Plaza. He's associated with these two lovely individuals, Anthony Fat Tony Salerno. I can't tell from that picture or his nickname whether he's in the mob. Later, it was made clearer when he was convicted. Anyway, also Paul Castellano. I can't tell from that haircut or those glasses if he's really from the mob. He looks like Robert De Niro from Casino, which I know that they obviously looked at these mafia figures before they made that movie. All right, so now, but come on now. What does Donald Trump have to do with all this? And do you really have proof? Well, as you're going to see later in the story, there are indictments and there are convictions. So let's start at the beginning, though. And this is David Cay Johnston, who's been covering Trump for a long time, writing about this. And he's also quotes a lot of Wayne Barrett's work. And Wayne Barrett is a legendary journalist in New York that has been covering these pivotal figures in New York for decades. So Politico explains through David Cay Johnston, quote, after graduating in 1968 from the University of Pennsylvania, a rich young man from the outer boroughs of New York City sought his fortune on the island of Manhattan. Within a few years, Donald J. Trump had made friends with the city's most notorious fixer, lawyer Roy Cohn, who had become famous as lead counsel to Senator Joseph McCarthy. Oh, great. He's also connected to Joe McCarthy. Now, he didn't do the McCarthy stuff. He just hired Roy Cohn to fix things for him in New York. Let's find out what that entailed. Politico explains, among other things, Cohn was now a mob consigliere, great, with clients including Fat Tony Salerno, boss of the Genovese crime family, the most powerful mafia group in New York, and Paul Castellano, head of what was said to be the second largest family, the Gambinos. So now what do they do with these guys? Well, one of the things is a little arcane. They use ready mixed concrete in building these buildings. Ready mixed concrete. Why does that tell us anything? Well, it turns out that's a little riskier. Surprise, surprise. But it also speeds up construction. But it settles really quickly, so you cannot have any labor problems. But don't worry, that's where those families came into play, and they were going to fix those labor problems for Trump, so he wouldn't have any. So let's give you details. Trump ended up not only using ready-mix concrete, but also paying what a federal indictment of Salerno later concluded were inflated prices for it repeatedly to S&A Concrete, a firm Salerno and Castellano owned through fronts, and possibly to other mob-controlled firms. All right, let's get into the mix a little bit more. Salerno and Castellano and other mob families controlled both the concrete business and the unions involved in delivering and pouring it. The risk this created became clear from testimony later by Irving Fisher, the general contractor who built Trump Tower. Fisher said concrete union, quote, goons once stormed his offices, holding a knife to the throat of his switchboard operator to drive home the seriousness of their demands, which included no-show jobs during construction of Trump Tower. It's like a scene out of The Sopranos, right? We want our no-show jobs. You understand what I'm saying? This is the guy who built Trump Tower. He's the general contractor. They held a knife to the throat of his receptionist. This is insane. Okay. So, or his switchboard operator. Now, again, okay, these are allegations, these are reports, these are quotes from people who were involved, but was there any adjudication of this? Well, yes. So the indictment on which Salerno was convicted in 1988 and sent to prison where he died listed the nearly $8 million contract for concrete at Trump Plaza, an East Side high-rise apartment building, as one of the acts establishing that S&A was part of a racketeering enterprise. Now, in order to do the racketeering, you got to have a partner to do it with. Now, Trump, as always, Teflon Don. Everything just slides off of him. I'm not going to get convicted. No. Oh, those guys? Oh, golly gee, did I use them? And then they were doing the racketeering, and they wound up working on Trump Tower and Trump Plaza, and they got convicted for it? I guess that's a tough day for them, isn't it? Now, to give you a sense of, like, this isn't just about, hey, concrete mixing. These guys are also implicated in everything, all the way through gangland slayings and murder, etc. In fact, Michael Chertoff, who was the prosecutor at the time, who would later become head of the Department of Homeland Security, said, quote, this was the largest and most vicious criminal business in the history of the United States. Now, could you imagine if a Democrat was implicated in working with the mob and they get convicted on the dealings they had with that Democrat. And it's the most vicious criminal enterprise. And let's say it was not old school Italian mob, but Mexican drug gangs. Now, what do you think the Republican Party would do to that Democrat? What do you think the media would do to that Democrat? But he's Teflon Don. It just slides right on off him, okay? So now, that's not all. What would Republicans do to a Democrat who was proven to work with illegal immigrants, right? Outrageous. Well, this is also part of the story. So they explained what the Polish Brigade was. So this is again back when Trump is first rising up, literally, as he's building up his Trump Towers in Trump Plaza. The non-union workers were mostly illegal Polish immigrants, Politico explains, paid $4 to $6 per hour with no benefits, far below the union contract. At least some of them did not use power tools, but sledgehammers, working 12 hours a day or more, often 7 days a week. Known as the Polish Brigade, many didn't wear hard hats. Many slept on the construction site. Jeez, Lord mercy, okay? So here's the Republican nominee who say, I'm going to build a wall to keep the illegal immigrants out. Meanwhile, he's like, hey, illegal immigrants, come here. Oh, yeah, you can even sleep in there. That's fine. Just work for me, and then the mob will work it, and I'll have all my fixers work on it, etc. Unbelievable! And meanwhile, the Republicans, they talked about this briefly, the Polish Brigade, during some of the debates, right? And the Republican voters are like, oh, they're Polish illegal immigrants? Totally fine, right? Oh, it's not Mexican drug gangs, it's Italian drug gangs? By the way, they also peddled drug, and they were also convicted on that. The Gambino family and the others that I cited, right? That's okay. That's just fun between friends. Okay, now we go to John Cody. He's a Teamster official who was convicted also of racketeering. And here's a story about him. In the summer of 1982, John Cody, then under indictment, ordered a citywide strike, but the concrete work continued at Trump Tower. Come on now, if you had any doubts, that should settle it for you. First of all, the mob guys already got convicted on this. That should settle it for you, period, right? And in the conviction, they say, yes, they were working for Trump on this Trump Tower, right? But now here it is. They do a citywide strike, the Teamsters, that at the time are corrupt, right? And the one guy they don't strike is the guy using the mob concrete. What a wonderful coincidence. Okay, then you go to Daniel Sullivan. He was another labor fixer, but he later turned FBI informant. And here's what he said when informed about the Polish Brigade. Donald told me that he was having his difficulties and he admitted to me that, seeking my advice, that he had some illegal Polish employees on the job. I reacted by saying to Donald that, quote, I think you are nuts. I told him to fire them promptly if he had any brains. Okay. Now, again, if you're wondering, well, did that get adjudicated? I know, okay, fine. The construction and the mob ties, that got adjudicated, and there were convictions, et cetera. How about the Polish Brigade? Well, in 1991, a federal judge, Charles E. Stewart Jr., ruled that Trump had engaged in conspiracy. Now, again, this is now Trump directly. Trump had engaged in a conspiracy to violate a fiduciary duty or duty of loyalty to the workers and their union, and the breach involved fraud, and the Trump defendants knowingly participated in his breach. The judge did not find Trump's testimony to be sufficiently credible and set damages at $325,000. The case was later settled by negotiation, and the agreement was sealed, of course. Keep it under wraps. But we know that it happened. So that is two different cases that are adjudicated. This is unbelievable. You got a guy who's got connections to the mob, who clearly worked with illegal immigrants, and the Republican Party's like, yay, let's go get them. Oh, we hate illegal immigrants unless they're working for the Republican nominee for president, right? Oh, we're rule of law party, okay, law and order. Got to get tough on crime. Oh, he worked with the top mobsters and the most vicious family in America? That's fine. No, we meant black people and Mexicans. We didn't mean Italian mobsters. We didn't mean illegal Polish immigrants. No, we're going to celebrate Donald J. Trump. Okay, you can just understand what you're celebrating, because all this stuff proven in court, that's your man. You're proud to stand behind a guy who brazenly used illegal immigrants and brazenly worked with the mob? Have at it, Hoss.